Hello and welcome to Analysis with me, John Rees. 3 stories casting suspicion on the Muslim community have hit the headlines in as many days in the last week. In the first, Prime Minister David Cameron announced an investigation into members of the Muslim Brotherhood in the UK in response to accusations that they are a terrorist organisation. Then, BBC's Panorama ran a story alleging maladministration against Lutfur Rahman, the Mayor of Tower Hamlets in East London. But today we're looking at a third story, the alleged Islamic plot to take over schools in Birmingham. The story focused on the high-achieving Park View School in the Alum Rock area of Birmingham, where undue pressure is said to have been exercised by parents and governors. The claims have been contested by the head of the governors. Emergency Ofsted inspections have now been ordered in Birmingham schools by the government. I'm joined to discuss the issues by Professor Gus John, who's an honorary fellow at the Institute of Education and director of the Gus John Consultancy, and on the line by Maurice Coles, CEO of the Co-Ed Foundation and author of the book Every Muslim Child Matters, and by Tahir Alam, who's chair of the governors at the Parkview School Academy and spokesman for the Association of Muslim Schools. But first, let's take a look at this report.
A dozen schools in Birmingham are currently being investigated after a series of allegations were made of a planned Islamist takeover. The schools in predominantly Muslim areas of Birmingham have faced allegations including the sidelining of non-Muslim staff and the banning of certain subjects like music deemed to be haram. This has been as a result of what has been described as a full-blown Islamist plot to introduce a more hard-line brand of Islamic governance to schools in the area. Parkview Academy in the Alum Rock area of Birmingham is at the centre of the alleged plot, codenamed Trojan Horse. The details of the plot were laid out in an anonymous, undated document that was leaked to Birmingham City Council last December. This man, Tahir Alam, was mentioned in the document as involved in the Trojan Horse operation. He is the governor at Parkview Academy and has denied the authenticity of the documents.
I mean, the actual document, which is known as the Trojan Horse dossier, if you like, that document is anonymous, unsigned, unattested, and undated. So it's quite astonishing, really, that on back of such a document, people have given it some credence, really.
Yet senior officials are taking the accusations seriously. The leader of Birmingham City Council has written to every school head teacher outlining that all children in the city should receive a broad and balanced education. And the Education Secretary, Michael Gove, along with local MPs, has called for a swift investigation into the schools in question. Earlier today, we spoke to local MP, Khalid Mahmood, and asked him what his particular concerns were.
What I'm concerned about particularly are the way that this group has infiltrated a predominantly a Sunni community and are trying to change the beliefs or the school of thought that majority community in that area has. And to substantiate this, I've had a number of complaints from some of the teachers and some of the heads of local schools as well. Quite significant amount of depth of understanding about how they've been pushed by some of these people in this group on governing bodies, how they've gone on to their governing bodies and how they try to push different things as far as they're concerned.
But the governors at Parkview Academy strongly deny these charges.
I'm a governor myself and has been for 17 years. I'm a practicing Anglican Christian. I'm not even a Muslim, let alone Salafist or Wahhabi. I've not met any Salafists or Wahhabis on the governing body and nobody has declared themselves as such. And to my knowledge, Khalid Mahmood has never been near the school. He's certainly never been to a governing body meeting. And as far as I know, he's unknown and not known to any of the governors here. So I find the claims quite ridiculous.
The allegations have yet to be verified, but over the last few weeks, some parts of the national media have been relentless in its negative reporting of the school. When we arrived at Parkview Academy, we were met by many local parents who were not happy at the sight of yet another camera crew outside their school. But many seemed reassured when we told them we were from Islam Channel.
How dare they get away with just, mocking us? It's like a total witch hunt. It is. Yeah. It's a witch hunt. Understand? Yeah. Why? You can't just come in and just pick out certain portions of what you want and blow it out of proportion. It's totally wrong.
The last time the school received any significant media interest was last year when it was being celebrated for receiving an outstanding report from Ofsted. The school had been praised for taking children from one of the most deprived areas in the country and producing excellent exam results. Are you happy with the quality of education that your daughter's getting at Parkview Academy?
Apart from my daughter, my two sons go to this school as well. The quality of education, I mean, I used to come to this school myself. 1% from A to C grades. At the moment, I think it's 70, 78, 79%. It's fantastic. I mean, alhamdulillah, we ended up in university, we ended up in colleges, we've done fantastic. But there's more and more children going into colleges, more and more going into universities, more and more getting decent jobs rather than just lingering on the roads. And I think it's absolutely fantastic. What they've done with Parkview is absolutely fantastic.
In this community in Birmingham, support for the school appeared to be strong. And while the accusations made against the school remain serious, many in this community believe that the school is being attacked simply for trying to accommodate the needs of its students. Sarah Say, Islam Channel.
OK, so let's begin the discussion with you, Tahir. You're head of the governors. These are accusations against your school. Is there any basis to them at all?
Well, these accusations hinge on this document known as the Trojan horse dossier. And this is a document which is completely anonymous, unsigned, unattested, and its source is not known. And it was... This particular document was first in circulation, but probably in November, December time, and then it got recirculated in January. And then it got picked up by, I assume, the Education Department maybe in sometime February as well. And since then, of course, although it's completely unattested and a lot of the material contained in it actually is very contradictory and evidently untrue, but nonetheless, it does actually, mention people like myself, and he talks about some kind of a plot, really, a Salafi plot, if you like, to lies and to extremize schools and take over schools, and it's got that kind of material in there, really. But that particular document, as you may know recently, as far as the conspiratorial nature of this document is concerned, Birmingham City Council yesterday, in fact, have said that there's no such a conspiracy. That's what they've concluded after.
So, is there anything? I mean, we've heard stories that a headmaster from 20 years ago has come forward and said that he felt similarly or something. But is there anybody who's mentioned in the document or who's given evidence that is included in the document? Is there any named person at all who's come forward and said, yes, this is what I think and this is why I think it?
Absolutely not. There is no. My name is mentioned as one of the, if you like, players, if you like, in that sense. All the other names are spurious and they're not known. Nobody has come forward. None of the evidence actually corroborates. In fact, one of the head teachers that was supposed to be, according to the wording in the dossier itself, was supposed to be actually in position now. And of course, when you do a Google search, you find that this head teacher actually was removed really about 20 years ago. So the whole timescales are out really as far as all that is concerned.
Okay.
Somebody just concocted the document, off the internet, you might say, things which were completely unconnected. They try to connect them to make it seem as if it's a plot.
Okay. John, what do you make of this? I mean, there's now the government has told Ofsted to start doing a series of snap investigations into Birmingham schools on the basis of an anonymous document. Have you ever heard of anything like this before?
Well, I find it intriguing. I find it disturbing. It is a dangerous development as far as I'm concerned. Let's remember factually what is happening in the country. The government has made it possible for very successful schools to take over schools that are failing. They have the capacity to open new schools. There are many parents around the country, denominational or not, who look to successful schools to send their children to, and I can't see why that should be different for Muslim parents. And so the issue, therefore, is one of equity. And secondly, would the DFE, Department for Education, send in inspectors if a very successful Roman Catholic school, of which there are many, were to determine that it wanted to look around and see how it could expand its estate by having more schools around. So I think they have to be conscious of the charge of Islamophobia. I think they ought not to be encouraging divisions within those communities based on religion. And if the government has a concern about the expansion of Muslim schools, it should have reviewed its policy on denominational schools altogether before opening up the market to all and sundry. In other words, you can't have Jewish schools, Roman Catholic schools, Adventist schools, or any other denominational schools, and suggest that Muslim communities should not aim to open as many schools as they like. It's a contradiction.
Let me bring in Maurice Coles here. Maurice, well, what do you make of the local MP, Khalid Mahmood's intervention in this? Do you think that some people are saying he's given some credibility to a report or to a letter which otherwise wouldn't have had any?
You're going to have to help me, John. What does Khalid actually say?
Well, he said that there are some concerns here. But anyway, I mean, let's leave him aside a moment, and I'll come back to that in a moment. What do you make of the veracity of the claims in this?
I think the whole thing actually beggars belief. I mean, if you put it in the cool light of day and say, let's have a look at this all rationally. We used to be such a balanced and measured nation, but we seem to have lost it. So on the basis of completely unfounded allegations, unproven, even untested at the time, the government of the day decides to send in to 12 schools, I understand, Ofsted inspectors. Many of these schools are actually outstanding from previous Ofsted inspections. And of course, for those that know education, when you get an Ofsted, especially one that actually is based upon something you know nothing about, it's hugely worrying, hugely unsettling for the teachers, for the parents, for the staff, and it's all transpired that actually, as the chief exec said yesterday, there is no foundation at all for this. So for a government to act upon such a document, it is absolutely incredible. It reminds me of the McCarthyite period in the 50s and the witches of Salem, when somebody says something and you all rush around. And there is a Trojan horse, John, and that Trojan horse actually is not full of Greeks or Muslims. It's full of Ofsted HMI inspectors jumping all over people on the basis of nothing.
Okay. Well, let me just put the point to here a minute. I mean, the one thing that has led this credibility is the intervention of the local of a local MP, not the one in Allen Rock, but in another part of Birmingham, saying that there should be investigation into this. What do you make of that?
Yeah, can I just clarify that Parkview Educational Trust and our Parkview School and our two other schools, we are successful schools, and we're not Islamic faith schools. We're normal community state schools, actually, which are successful, and we've been looking to, and we sponsored two other schools. Just clarification, really, to make that clear. As far as the Khalid Mahmood is concerned, actually, I've been quite shocked, actually, by his assertions that, for example, he said, the governing body at Parkview actually is a Wahhabi and is of Wahhabi background. Now, the strange fact is that he has never been to our governing body. I don't think he has really met anybody else from our governing body, apart from myself, perhaps, in a passing fashion. And thirdly, we've got Christians and people who have no faith on the governing body as well. In fact, we also have a vice chairman of our association, of our trustees, who actually is a practicing Anglican Christian. So it's a strange fact, it's a strange phenomenon that we are running, supposed to be running, some kind of, a radicalization or extremist kind of setup, really, when our vice chairman, our vice trustee happens to be a practicing Anglican Christian, and we got other non-Muslims on the governing body as well. And interestingly enough, as far as is concerned, in relation to Parkview, you'd think that, if there's any truth in any of this stuff, I've been a governor there for 17 years. I've appointed 3 permanent head teachers in that particular school. All 3 head teachers have not been Muslims. All 3 head teachers have not been Muslims. So, I mean, I take Maurice Cole's point very seriously that this has been a knee-jerk reaction and irresponsible action, really, on part of people in positions of authority and responsibility. And quite frankly, to be honest with you, the impact upon our organization, which has been inspected very, very heavily and investigated as well as other schools, on a completely spurious, baseless document, and based also on not on the document itself, but if you look at the allegations that have been made within media, for example, Al-Qaeda assemblies being done, non-Muslims being referred to as kuffar, and all kinds of allegations which are completely unfounded. And the people who are supposed to have made these allegations, their names are not known. The time when these things supposed to have happened are not known. They're not declared anywhere. But yet all these things have been printed week after week, building political pressure, really, for people to intervene, which they have done, of course, as a knee-jerk reaction, not based on any evidence base, which is a very sad situation, actually. And unfortunately, the impact on our organization in terms of its reputation, its standing, which is a very, very high-performing school. I'll give you some idea of what we're talking about here. 72% of our children, and Professor Gus will be able to comment on that, 72% of our children are on free school meals. It gives you an idea of the deprivation of the area. Our results include maths are 75%, and they've been above 70% for the last 4 years, and last year's results are 75%.
OK, well, let me just develop some of those points with Gus John here. Gus, how much do you think that an incident like this can only really take place and can only really kind of gather traction and gather the kind of news reporting that it's had because of the general environment of Islamophobia? I mentioned 2 other stories this week. Now, it's hard to see how a story like this would make it out of the local papers if it weren't for that environment, isn't it?
And it's precisely why I agree with Maurice that the local authority has a responsibility to stand above all of that stuff, be very objective and consistent in its reactions, and as Sahir was saying, not give in to people who want to produce any kind of document without saying who they are, where the evidence comes from, and scrutinizing that. In other words, they're allowing factions or individuals within the community to hold them to ransom to do things which, frankly, they ought not to be doing.
Maurice, do you think there is an Ofsted report, I believe, that hasn't been published about this school? Now, given what Tahir is saying about its record, do you think the failure to produce that is because it wouldn't fit in with this story? It would say this is actually a very good school. Do you think that's the reason why we haven't seen it come to light in the middle of this?
Well, that's asking me to second guess. You see, that it's very interesting because I happen to be the school advisor to a faith-based Muslim school, the Darul Uloom, which is in Small Heath, which is outside of all this. And we've been inspected twice, once in June and once in October, which was very, very bizarre. And although the second report actually is not quite as good as the first, they've downgraded our spiritual, moral, social and cultural, it's still good because the results really are outstanding. And that also hasn't yet hit the streets. And so you have to ask why. And to be honest, John, I struggle. I can't see the logic because I don't know. Well, I know of 2 other schools that have been inspected, one last week and one this week, even as we talk. And we'll be interested to see how long it gets the government actually takes to publish that, because knowing both the schools, I suspect that they will do well. Certainly both in their previous inspections were outstanding. One was only inspected last year. So to be honest, I am just a bit of a loss to know what's going on. I think what we will need to do, and I doubt the local authority has got the capacity to do it because local authorities are now so diminished and so downsized, but certainly it's a thing that I'm happy to undertake, is to, when all the 12 reports, if they do 12 now, are published, I would like to do analysis of those 12.
OK, Maurice, we're just coming to the end of the first part, so just let me bring Tahir back in for a last word. What do you think the future of the school is now? Can it bounce back from this?
We have hanging over our head really are the after the inspections that have been done and the negative portrayal. It'll have an impact on this. We wait for the reports, of course, and can't comment on those, of course, until they come and so on. But obviously, the school's reputation has been tarnished. It affects things like recruitment and so on. And to give you an idea, really, one of our pupils, was following the newspaper stories, and he said, "Look, why are they treating us like terrorists?" That's the perceptions of our pupils, of our parents, and of the community. Because on the back of this spurious document and knee-jerk reactions in people in
OK, Tahir, I'm going to have to bring it to a close there because we're running out of time before the break. But thanks for joining us, and we'll be looking in the second half at the wider implications for faith schools as a whole. Do rejoin us after the break.